when I hear that a heat wave is on the way down south, and down south is a term I used only when I'm in Edinburgh, coming originally from Brighton, but when I hear there's a heat wave and I'm walking in very chilly weather here in Edinburgh, I'm actually feeling quite blessed because this weather suits me. It also suits me in terms of thinking about the problem that I've already encountered with people as we're on, I think, day 4 of Edinburgh Fringe, and that's where they've had no reviews and they don't even know if anyone's been in to their venue. And I overheard one press office manager, when a very anxious performer was asking them who the reviewers were that they thought were in the front row because someone was taking notes, and the press office manager kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, I don't know. That's not because they're being a bad press manager, it's because they know a hell of a lot of the reviewers that were out there. But more and more TikTokers and bloggers are reviewing stuff too, and not making themselves known to press offices because they've just bought a ticket and they're in. And sometimes people make notes just because they're learning about theatre, and so they might not be wearing one of these lanyards, but they're taking notes so somebody thinks a reviewer has been in. And you need to get used to that, and that you can't stop those people reviewing your shows. And why would you want to? Well, you'd want to because you don't know who they are. They could write anything about your show, but that's happening more and more, and it's part of the democratization of the internet and everybody having access to sharing their voice publicly, which can be with the whole world. So one of the terms around that is get used to it. But certainly I've heard from performers that it's pretty okay if someone's taken notes in your show. Is only in a friendly way, and they might not want to tell you, but it's just to ask them which reviewer outfit they're from. And that could be one of your team. They could have that job, is just to see who's in, so you don't need to worry about that as a performer. And some of them sit in the front row deliberately, as reviewers do. Others will be perched halfway back or at the back. And some are in as reviewers, but once again, if they've not asked for a ticket, they might have made themselves known to the venue, in which case you can look them up and find out who they are. So in a way, that might be a good and a bad problem to have for you, that you'd like to know who is in, and you'd like even to control who is in. But also, if you're desperate for a review, it might be good news that someone's in to see your work, and you find out, if you can find online where they are, and you look up your show on Google and so on and find there is a review on a lesser known website, or say a TikTok account where someone's come out of your show and they're recording something. But what about if you've had no reviews at all, and you're 4 or 5 days into a Fringe festival and you're worried that no one's coming in, and you don't have that opportunity to get feedback and to put any good quotes and star ratings on your posters in order to sell a few more tickets? And I think it's never too late, and that's the message here. Here at Fringe Review, you can always write to us, and it may seem like we're being rude if we don't reply, and it's simply that the number of shows and the amount of people available is not matched, and so people go into just a state of over busyness, and literally people talk about they haven't been able to get to the first 5 pages of their unread inbox just because far too much stuff is coming in and there's just nothing they can do about it. I try to get through everything, and we try all the tricks to reply with a standard email that's hopefully helpful, to try and pick up the threads where you might have met somebody where they pitched to you at a media event and you say, send me a press release. But I think, once again, don't get irritated. Everyone is genuinely trying their best, but that's just a set of excuses. You're worried about how do you get a review if it's not in the first few days, and you're worried about that. And I would say, if your venues have got any media events, that's obviously key. Go and refresh a meeting with your press office. If you're in a small venue, there may not be a press office, in which case try to contact the media 1 more time, 2 more times, and usually it might kick in with something a bit more direct. You can find out the name of that reviewer and address them directly. Say very specifically why they might come, and that's where this can start to work. follow what they've already reviewed. If it turns out they've been reviewing puppetry and yours is a puppetry based show, or a specific theme of comedy, and say, I noticed you commented on this issue in the news, or I noticed that you went to see 3 puppet shows recently that were drawn from a particular field of puppetry or mask work, and you may not be aware that my show is a mask show, so I'd love to get your view on it. The more specific it gets, the more likely you are to get a personal reply, and the more likely you are to get that reviewer coming in. So I think what might work earlier in the Fringe when people are scheduling up, which is kind of spraying the field with press releases to anybody and everybody, needs to focus down and get a little bit more specific. In case you're worried, well, I'm a bit out of breath. I've been walking fast and I'm climbing up at the moment. This is one of the ways into Edinburgh, which is up quite a steep hill. So if I think about Fringe Review, for example, we've got people who teach puppetry, teach clown, are practitioners of physical theatre. Our music reviewers make music. Some have shows at the Fringe, but quite a lot don't. This is just their field the rest of the year, and their reviews are going up. So look them up, see what they're interested in, see what they're focused on, and focus your invitation, your press release on that particularly. And you can get very detailed about that. You can refer to certain things they said in the review that a certain field has developed recently, and that you feel that you're part of some new developments, that you're trying something interesting in your field. Now that sounds very sort of arty, and a lot of people up here have got just some stand-up. But I think once again, you might notice that a stand-up reviewer has been to several shows that are open mic nights where there are 4 or 5 different guests, and you might say, by the way, we've got a similar show. It could be the reviewer likes writing about variety and doesn't just always want to spend time with just one comedian, but is interested in different ones. So if you've got a variety night, or it could be that you might invite them just to try out a bit of your comedy, that you're doing a guest slot, and that might lead them to come to your full show. So you're probably getting the message that the more specific you are as the Fringe goes on, the more it looks like you're acknowledging the interests of that reviewer without stalking them. You know, it doesn't need to be too personal, but the more you've done your research, and the more acknowledged, therefore, and valued the reviewer feels, and the more that you're aware that their time is limited. So coming to see your show would be for very specific reasons. That may well get the reviewers along. And that can happen. I think it was Lynn Gardner, who's a well-known journalist, who says she is open to be messaged. You can't promise anything, but messaged very specifically on social media. I'm not advertising for her, but I remember being very inspired that she said at least a little bit of her schedule remains open to be surprised. And I think that's when a very specific text or message, email, and when I say text, not personally texting them, I mean on social media, can be the winner for you to get that review in. So think about what's unique about your show. Think how that is specifically relevant to specific reviewers, and start to use your magnifying glass, start to focus down, and give the reviewer a good reason to put you in their schedule. Have a good day.